So I get to preach for you guys today. My name is Aaron Dickinson. I am the location pastor here. Let me figure out how to do this with a hand. Oh, perfect. Thank you. I'm the location pastor here at the Mountain Home location. So Pastor Vince, a couple of weeks ago, we were setting our summer schedule up for communicators and all that kind of stuff. And he said, Aaron, I'd love for you to take Father's Day. I'm like, awesome, sweet. I'll preach Father's Day. I know what I'm going to preach. I know the direction I'm going to go. And I was excited for it. And then this week hit, and I got really anxious about it. And Pastor Vince texted me this morning, encouraging me, and I'm appreciative for that. I love our pastor. He's an incredible, incredible person. He's an incredible man of God. He's an incredible leader. I do think we should give him honor as every opportunity we can. He gets to be at some friends' church today, just outside Atlanta in Locust Grove at Relevant Church. So if you want to go listen to what he had to share today, go check out Relevant Church and listen to his message today. And then he's going to spend the week investing in church planners and encouraging them and guiding them. And I'm excited that he gets to do that. I'm appreciative of a pastor that's dedicated and has a desire to see other church leaders grow. So he's out there doing that. So celebrate him for that as well. He'll be back next week to go through the series as we're going through this Throw It Back tour. Today we got YOLO is a Lie. Last week, Patrick killed it with Game Changers. Give it up for Pastor Patrick. He's preached on Jonah. And Pastor Vince will be back next week for cow tipping. So I don't know if you guys remember cow tipping, but he'll be back for that one. And I'm excited to hear what he has as we celebrate 10 years of Real Life Church this summer. So today we're going to dive in. We're going to dive into YOLO is a Lie. You guys know what YOLO is? Okay, I've got to pause for a second because of the demographics of the services, okay? Hear me when I say this the right way, please. The 8:30 is a little more seasoned than the 10 and the 11:30. But there were a whole lot more people in the 8:30 that knew what YOLO was than in this 10 o'clock. The 11:30 is probably like, yeah, I live by YOLO. Like, it's going to work, whatever. No, YOLO means you only live once. You only live once. So whenever we did the series, YOLO is a Lie, we did the church thing and take culture and twist it to make sure it fits what we need to communicate. So that's what we did here. But YOLO comes from a song lyric from a guy named Drake. Anybody know who Drake is? Yeah, cool. My wife was up here. Yeah, I know who Drake is. I know she does because I'm the one that introduced her to Drake, so it's all good. There was a season where I listened to a lot of Drake. And his first album was called Thank Me Later. It was on CD. If anybody remembers what that is. I'm at the point in my life now that they make vehicles that don't have CDs in them. And I'm like, oh, this is what you guys meant, like when 8-tracks, like that was a thing. And now you're like, where's the 8-track player? I'm like, what's an 8-track? It's a brick. So I remember my dad getting excited about actually go find an 8-track player for the truck that he had and finding 8-tracks to play in. So I get that experience now because of CDs. And we don't know what CDs are anymore. But this album, I had multiple copies of it. I actually went through 3 discs of this Thank Me Later album because I listened to it so much in my truck. I get kind of frustrated sometimes when students roll in on a Wednesday night and they got their subs going and they're pounding their sound system in their car and you can hear the stuff coming out of it and I'm like, come on, you're whipping into church and you're playing that and you're blaring it. And then God's like, Aaron, you're getting frustrated about some of the exact same things that you did when you were going to youth group as well. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, that works. But Drake had a line called YOLO. And it blew up one summer. I actually had a girl I went to high school with. I got it tattooed on her senior year, like all that crazy stuff. But YOLO blew up. But we're going to dive into this. YOLO is a lie. And I'm going to talk about dads for a minute. I'm going to talk about my dad. And I'm going to try not to get emotional. No promises at all. We'll probably cry. So bear with me in that. So if I start crying, it takes like 5 minutes. And you guys are like, okay, I'm just going to dip out. Totally cool. I'll let my wife hold me and I'll cry on the front. And we'll just dismiss from there and we'll be good. YOLO is a lie. My dad was my superhero, is my superhero. Everything that he would do revolved around church or family. Those are the only 2 options. And he lived on experiences in those two worlds. It was a lot of times, hey, our vacation's going to fit around the fact that he's going to go preach in this area. So there's this Major League Baseball team. We can go catch a game. We can go to this water park. But every night he's going to be preaching at this revival at this church. But during the day, we can do vacation stuff. But my dad was a person that I always looked up to, and I still do. It may be because we look identical to each other. I could show you a picture. I didn't put it in, though. I'll post it later, and you can go look if you're actually interested. You're probably not, but whatever. But we look identical. And the reason I never got to play football was because of my dad. My mom and my dad were looking out for me. My dad graduated at 6'4", 145 pounds, which means he was about this thin right there is what my dad looked like. And they were like, yeah, you're going to get broken in half now, and you're not man enough to take a hit. They weren't wrong about that either. So I played golf and basketball. But so my dad was my superhero. Incredible, incredible guy. He was a bivocational pastor, so he was a full-time pastor and a full-time maintenance supervisor of the school district. And I loved getting to watch how my dad invested in people. And did anybody ever appreciate stuff once it's gone? I've done a lot of that over the last 11 years. And I've got binders and printouts and all kinds of stuff of emails that my dad used to send to the school staff of encouragements every day with verses in it, just telling them that they're good, telling them that they're valuable, telling them that Jesus loves them, telling them that he loves them. I get to go back through the old messages that he got to preach. Listen to them on cassette tapes, go through his old journals. It's really cool to get to watch the intentionality that he had. He was the best. My mom is my other superhero. This is how incredible my parents are. My mom yesterday, University of Oklahoma Athletic Department had a garage sale. So they do this about every 5 or 6 years because, Nike and Jordan just send them stuff. There's free stuff and free stuff and free stuff and free stuff. And they had so much stuff that now they needed to get rid of the inventory. And my mom stood in line for 3.5 hours to get into the building to get me a couple things. I was like, a helmet would be cool, some jerseys, because this is all team-issued stuff. This isn't just stuff that you buy at Academy or go to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy it. No, this was really cool stuff. And I was like, if you can get something that was signed by, Blake Griffin or Sam Bradford or any of those kind of guys, that'd be awesome too. So she went in, but she was towards the end of the line. 3.5 hours. Finally got in. Went in, she got a couple pairs of shoes, she got some shirts and some little things like that. She got in line to check out. About 2 hours later in the checkout line, she said she was about 7 people away, and this guy comes out and says, hey, everything on that end of the building is now $1. So my mom gets out of line and goes and gets more stuff. So we got sweats, we got shorts, we got socks, we got hats, we got visors, we got polos, we got all kinds of stuff. And I was like, you shouldn't have told anybody it was $1. You got Christmas presents for the next 5 years for everybody. But she waited a total about 7 hours later. She called me and said, hey, I'm in the car and I'm headed home. 7 hours she waited just to get me some stuff. And my dad would have done the exact same thing. So my parents are superheroes. I love them. And I love what they left me with and what I get to take, because these are some of the things that my dad taught me that he was intentional about. That he took intentional time to invest into me. The first lesson I really, really remember, except for the one that I got in trouble because I said, what the hell one time, and he got on to me for that. That's a different story. So the second lesson I remember learning was I was in 3rd grade, and my mom got a phone call. And it was out of the blue, wasn't expecting anything at all. Got a phone call, and I don't remember who called. It was a call to say that my grandpa, her dad, had just had a sudden heart attack and passed away on the spot. At a barbecue restaurant with my uncle and some friends, had a heart attack at the table, passed away on the spot. In 3rd grade, I went outside, picked up my basketball, started dribbling, just started shooting, and began to wonder for the first time that I remember about life. Why do we die? Why do things like this happen? It doesn't make sense. We were just getting ready to go on a trip to go spend time. Why? None of that stuff we were ever supposed to understand or experience. And that day, my dad walked out to me. He rebounds the ball. And he put his arm around me and he said, Aaron, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry because your strength will come from your struggles. And if you need to cry in this moment, don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not man enough. Because to be a real man, you got to own your feelings. You got to own your emotions and know how to leverage them. It's okay to cry. And he taught me how to be creative. He was a craftsman. He would work on projects and he would see things happen. He would build, whether it was safety and OSHA approved or not, we were going to make a solution happen. Taught me how to be creative. He showed me that worship is a lifestyle. It didn't matter who was around you or what room you were in. Everything you do it to the best of your ability to bring glory and honor to God. When you're in the house of God, worship with all your might. Lift your hands and praise and sing as loud as you can, no matter how bad you are. Because God appreciates that, and he wants to see his children worshiping. He taught me that every person is valuable. It doesn't matter what their background looked like. It doesn't matter the things they did. It doesn't matter what they've experienced. It just matters in the now of how you respond and how you treat them, because you may be the only example of Jesus they ever see. He taught me that you have the opportunity to choose the outcome. You may not be able to change the circumstances that you're in, but you can choose the outcome and the response that you have. The most important thing he taught me was that you love Jesus with everything you have. And the thing I wish that he would have known that he's taught me now is that it's okay to ask for help. We're going to walk through today. If you've got your notes, if you got a phone or a notebook or anything and you want to title your notes today, title this for me. I know YOLO is a lie, what's on the screen, but I want you to title it this. A legacy led, not a legacy left. A legacy led, not a legacy left. See, biblical legacy, biblical leadership is for anybody who's a child of God. It doesn't matter if you're a mom or a dad, a kid in the room, a single person, a business owner, trash truck driver. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. Biblical legacy is for every child of God. And every one of us is a child of God. So I don't know where this theme came from or how it's worked out, because God just says crazy things. But that wasn't me, I promise. Just sit down. I'm not trying to run you off just yet. Sorry about that. I don't know how it works out, but I guess we're going to do a summer of vacation Bible school, because last week Patrick did Jonah. So today I'm going to dive into Noah. If that helps you, which that's funny to say, dive into Noah. Noah didn't dive into anything. He's like, no, I'm staying in the ship. I'm not getting in the water. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Noah today. And it's crazy, the story and the person that Noah was and where we leave off. See, Noah was this guy that God trusted with the whole world. See, he tasked him with this thing to build an ark, a ship so big that no one had ever seen, because it was going to rain so much that the world was going to flood. And everyone's like, boy, you're crazy. It doesn't rain. What is rain? What is water? Like, we have to go to the well and draw up water from the ground. What is this? Is it going to fall from the sky? It doesn't even make sense. And Noah said, this is what God told me, and this is what I'm going to do. So he spent years building this ark to specific specifications. He spent time with God while doing this, building the ark. As people were coming up, asking him questions, as his wife came out saying, are you still going to be working on this? It's dark now. What else do you have to do today? What are you going to accomplish? You can get back to it tomorrow. His kids, his son's coming up saying, he's like, hey, I need your help. And like, oh, no, I want to go do something else right now. He said, no, I need your help in this moment. He stayed dedicated to what God had tasked him with. He was faithful. He was obedient, even when it was hard, even when people asked questions. So I don't know if you're like me, but I'm kind of a nosy person in situations. My wife just tapped our friend Dustin on the leg because she knows what I'm about to talk about. So there's this trend. Anybody know what TikTok is? Okay, some of you don't want to own up to it. There's a trend on TikTok right now where when people are at their house and there's cops or something in the street across from them, they'll like take a vacuum cleaner or a broom or something and they'll go out to the front yard and be like, don't mind me, and just vacuum in my yard. What's going on over there? Like, I'm sure some of that was happening with Noah. He's building this huge ship and people are just walking on by. He's like, hey, let's go see where Noah's at today. Let's go see what he's doing today. Let's see how crazy this thing actually is. Let's see if he's given up yet. Some of you have been the people who are like, hey, let's just drive by. Let's just go look. Let's just see. We don't actually realize a lot of times how massive this thing was. Like, I forget about it, and I've gotten to see it. You're like, what? You got to see it. How's that work? I got a picture. We got to go to the Ark encounter in Kentucky a couple years ago. And this thing is crazy, crazy, crazy. So this is the replica to scale of the Ark that we got to go see. This is my wife. She's beautiful, walking up to it right now. And the thing that, as you're walking up to it, first off, it's so big that like you can't stand far enough back to actually get it into a picture on your phone. It's crazy. And when you start looking at it and you're like, wait a second, this thing was supposed to float. This thing did float. But this is a structure that was built as a replica, and it's on these concrete pillars and all this. It's got this huge ramp, and you're just looking like, okay, for them to build this to stay here is totally different than it had to have been built for it to actually be the ark that floated. And I encourage you, if you want to go see it, go see it. It's super, super cool. You get to see all the animals on the inside. You get to see how they would have grown food. You see their living quarters, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really cool. You should go see it. But it's massive. And then you got to think about how long it took a crew to build this, much less a man by himself that was just doing what God asked him to do. So then there came a point in time where you guys know the story that God told him, hey, we need 2 of every animal type to be on the ship, which means, there's every deer type, every bear type, all this kind of thing. You say, what do you mean by type? So we have this like fantasy where we're like, that God told him to put every single kind of animal, like every species on the ship. That's not how it worked. It was every type. So 2 of every deer type. So a deer type would be all encompassing, a gazelle, whitetail, moose, elk, all that. And then from that type, we've evolved to the species we see now. So he told him to get 2 of every type and bring them on the ship, and then close the door and bring your family on and close the door. And so they did that, and then the rain began to fall, and people began to knock on the door, and they're like, hey, let me in. And he's like, no, too late now, sorry. And then all of a sudden, they got water from the ground. The geysers began to bust, and they began to burst into the air, and the water began to fill the earth miles and miles above the highest point of elevation on earth. See, a lot of times we just tell this story that's super cool because at the end, it's when Noah comes out and he sends the birds out to see if it's good to come back. And when it doesn't come back, okay, it's cool for them to come out now. But we forget about the fact that, we paint this big mural on our nurseries and stuff for your kids' rooms or in the nurseries in our kids' area. But we leave out the part where people are holding onto rocks, screaming, hey, somebody help me, please. I'm dying here. And it's well, no, this is a beautiful story about Noah and how his family was saved. We don't care about everybody else that was killed. But it's a crazy, crazy story. The Bible's crazy. So they go on the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. And you got to probably think about it. I think this isn't in the scripture, but it's just how kind of I operate sometimes, about the time that Noah's probably missed out on a lot of stuff during life because he's been dedicated to his craft and to the assignment at hand. And now God's given him an opportunity to spend 40 days, 40 nights uninterrupted with his family. And some of you are like, oh God, please don't do that. Give me an assignment, but don't put me around my family. 40 days and 40 nights. When Pastor Vince first gave me this, I was like, I know where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to preach on legacy, being led and not being left. I want to walk through Noah and his sons and all this kind of stuff. And Brandon's like, I'm just going to go with YOLO is a lie. I'm going to listen to what Pastor Vince on that and just reshare it. I think it's really good. I was like, okay, cool, bro, you do that. I got what I want. And he's preached up in Gainesville today and bringing it from the Lord. But he did something for me this week that God was totally setting up. And I said, hey, will you send me the notes real quick from YOLO is a lie from a few years ago? And I have written down 4 things that my dad organically taught me. The things that he just lived his life out that I've learned and I've recognized. And those 4 things that I had written down are the 4 exact same things that line up with what YOLO is a lie was preached on. And so that's what I want to dive into in this moment. And I think it may have been a lot of the conversation that Noah possibly had on the ark. I don't know that for certain. But I like to think that these were the opportunities that he took with his family to share with them as he's having intentional moments with them. So the first thing that my dad organically taught me, the first thing you have to do to live a life that's exciting, that's vibrant, that begins for you to lead a legacy and not leave a legacy is you have to live passionately. You have to live passionately. You have to be excited about life and what you're good at and what you enjoy, what you're doing, your family, the things around you. You've got to be excited about that. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to be passionate about the right things. Some of you dads in here are going to know the balance that I'm talking about in this. So you can either have a hobby and a passion and you absolutely love it and your kids love it too because it's something that you love, or you have a passion and hobby that's so much that now your kids absolutely hate it because it's all that you love. Like, you got to find the middle ground in that. The only way for you to live passionately in life is you have to live passionately for Jesus. It says this in Matthew 6. It says in Matthew 6, verses 20 and 21, it says, "But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." There your heart will be also, where your treasure is. We treasure a lot of things that aren't really priority. I'm guilty of it. I spent the last 48 hours doing projects on stuff when it comes down to it doesn't really matter. Coating the wheels on my truck, taking care of stuff at home, just little projects. But my dad would do the same thing, but I've had to learn how to honor him in those things and be able to share in those experiences. Because when you live passionately for the right things, people begin to follow and see how it actually matters in real life. My dad had a mantra that he began to live by in about 8th grade that I've never forgotten and that I strive to live by every single day. I mentioned it a couple times here. And that was this: never have a bad day. Never have a bad day. Well, how is that possible? That doesn't even make sense. See, you might have things that you didn't agree with happen. You might have things happen during the day that hurt you. You might have circumstances that delayed you from what you were wanting to do. The day might not have been what you expected or what you wanted, but you have the opportunity and you have the power in your mind as a follower of Jesus to live passionately and say, my day's not ruined because I'm a child of God, because I have victory and he's gone before me in every one of these circumstances I'm facing, and he's going to get me through it all. I refuse to have a bad day. Some things may not have been what I wanted them to do, but I have a lot of good things to look forward to and to live passionately for what Jesus has instilled within me. You got looking for opportunities. One of the things that my dad did so amazingly and incredibly is to look for opportunities to make a difference. So he was a craftsman, so we would build out decks in the summer and contract decks. So he would go work 5 to 3 o'clock or so at the school, and then he would come home, grab a bite to eat, pick me up, and then we would go work on projects in the evening. And at those projects, he would always bring someone alongside him, whether it was me or a friend. He would ask people that had no idea what construction was or what to do or how to use a measuring tape and bring them out just so they could be around someone that's going to encourage them. Setting up intentional encounters, just like we talked about a few months ago with the woman at the well. You don't know what other people are experiencing, but you want someone to be able to come to you in that. Setting up intentional encounters in ways, one of my favorite things to do with my dad was to play golf. Started playing golf around the age of 3 because it's what my uncles did, my grandpa, my dad. We just do it as a family. My mom still plays a little bit when she's in town. And we would go play golf. And I remember one time, it was spring break, there was a friend with me. We got to go play at the University of Oklahoma golf course. So my dad just dropped a good chunk of cash for us to play. And we're about 6 holes in, and he's done. Not playing well, getting frustrated. We're having a good time because the course is beautiful. We're playing well, my buddy and me. And we finish out the 6th hole. He's walking back to the cart, and he puts the ball back in his bag, puts his club up, and he says, "Hey, I'm done for the day." So you're done for the day? Like, you just dropped however much money and you're going to quit a third of the way in. He said, "No, I'm not quitting. I'm not going to let my poor attitude ruin everybody else's day or ruin my day. There's nothing more that I love than watching you enjoy life, and that's what I want to watch today." So he watched. He drove. When he would take people to play golf that usually didn't play very often, I didn't know this till after he passed away, but they didn't keep score. His favorite way to play golf and to keep score was at the end of the round, whoever lost the fewest amount of golf balls, that person won. Some of you are like, "Oh, okay, like I'm into it now. Like I can go play that kind of game." No, he wanted people to enjoy life. He wanted them to live passionately. He wanted them to realize that, hey, a golf game shouldn't ruin your day. Never have a bad day. Live passionately and live for the right things. When you live for the right things, you'll be able to live for the real thing. Second thing is this: love completely. Love completely. There isn't a person in the world that my dad loved more than my mom. And the reason I knew my dad loved me, and my brother, and my sister, and the grandkids, and everybody else, the reason I knew he loved us is because of the way he loved my mom. Taking intentional moments to get home early to cook dinner because she's been home all day. Taking moments to stop in the kitchen and give her a hug and a kiss, knowing that my brother and I are watching so that we could see physically that they were in love with each other. There's a moment that I was totally like, are we really going to do this? Like, I really want to be somewhere else right now. It was in 9th grade, and it was actually the evening that I got to meet my now wife, Kaylee. We were going to the movies. I had just kind of moved schools, about a year into moving schools, still trying to make friends a little bit. And I got an invite that Friday at school. I was like, hey, you want to go to the movies tonight? I'm like, yeah, I want to go to the movies. I finally get invited to something. Let's go. So I tell my parents, I was like, hey, can I go to the movies tonight? They both worked at the school, so all I had to do was walk to my mom's classroom or to my dad's office and ask, and they're like, yeah, sure. Little did I know that after I asked, they'd already texted each other. Hey, Aaron's going to go to the movies. You want to go out to the movies as well and go on a date? And so they planned a date night around my movie night with friends. It gets better. We lived about 20 minutes from town. We get there, and we got to remember, we're in 9th grade, so I'm walking up the parking lot. I see this really pretty girl walking, and she's next to my best friend, and he thinks he's going to be cool, and so he comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, what's up? And so he goes to the high five, but he does, like, the pullback or, like, act real cool and like, trying to show out. Well, I trip. So I miss the high five, and I, trip, and I almost hit my face on the ground. And I'm like, man, okay, cool. I've already embarrassed myself in front of the new friends, embarrassed myself in front of the girl that's here. Like, can I just go home now? It gets better. My parents are walking up behind me and they're like, hey, what movie are you guys going to? I don't even remember what it was, because after this moment, I forgot everything. And they're like, hey, what movie are you guys going to? Whatever it is, don't go to this one because we're going to be making out in the back row. I'm like, I'm just going to walk home. The 20 minutes home, everybody else enjoy your night. I'm just going to walk home. But my dad loved my mom. He loved my mom, and he loved the church. And they go hand in hand together. And the reason is this, is because Jesus married to the church, the bride and the bridegroom. See, I tell people this a lot when it comes to my wife and I. I don't care what you think about me. Actually, I really do. But beside the point. I like people think like me, but I don't care nearly as much what you think about me, almost enough, as long as you love and cherish her. She's what matters to me. And that's the standard that my dad left for me. See, Jesus did the same thing for the church, for the body, for each and every single one of you. To give himself up for the church. This is what it says in Ephesians. It says in Ephesians 5:25-28, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. I would give anything up for my wife. My dad would give anything up for my mom. And that becomes from the fact that Jesus gave up everything for each and every one of us. It's the standard we should set as leading a legacy. You may be saying, well, I'm not married, or I'm divorced, or I'm just a kid, I'm widowed. What are you setting your foundation on? Your foundation should be set upon the fact that Jesus laid everything for you, to love those around you in such a way that he gave himself up for every single person. Love completely. The third thing is this, is you have to learn humbly. Life throws a lot of crazy stuff our way. I'm a guy of honor. You'll hear me talk about it a lot. Hey, let's honor our pastor. Let's honor our team. Honor your wife. Honor your employer. Like all these things. I'm a guy of honor. You cannot have honor without grace. See, Christians, we have this bad rap, and I don't know if you recognize this or not, but it's too common. We have this bad rap of being the only people that kill our wounded because we don't show the grace that's been shown to us. You may have experienced it this morning. You saw someone walk through the door, and you immediately thought about what they've been through, what they did, who they were, who they may still be, and not looking through the lens of grace that Jesus looks at you. You cannot have honor without grace. See, in this moment, after the ark, after they came off the ship and God was like, okay, restart everything, start making stuff happen again, Noah had a moment. And we don't talk about it very often. But you can see in this moment where honor and grace and learning and leading humbly come in. It's in Genesis 9, verse 20 through 23. It says, Noah began to be a man of the soil, meaning he went out and began to replant stuff and began to harvest. And there he planted a vineyard. In that vineyard, he drank of the wine and he became drunk. And then he laid uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. See, Ham's the younger brother. He just went out and he came, dad just got drunk and he's passed out naked in the tent. First off, he's already got an issue because his name is Ham. But that's beside the point. You can learn about, he's the father of Canaan. You can read into that a little bit later. In this moment, Noah failed. I don't know about you, where you failed. I've failed. In this moment, Noah failed. But he had two sons that learned from their father. And in this moment of failure, they led with grace and led with honor. They saw their dad was passed out, drunk, naked in his tent. And they went and they got a cloak, a garment, and put their backs to the tent and draped that garment over their shoulders with their head up and eyes forward and walked into the tent. When they saw his feet, they began to release it and lay it over him and walked back out, showing honor and grace to their father. Some of you are like, yeah, he's just spent 40 days and 40 nights with his family. I would have been drunk too. Maybe understandable. We can talk about that another time. One went out mocking and laughing in unbelief about the failure that their dad just had. The other two just realized the years and years and years of dedication and discipline that their dad put into serving God. To not taint his legacy because of a small failure. You have to have honor. You have to have grace. Grace doesn't ask questions. Honor operates in action. Grace doesn't devalue, and honor elevates. It says this in James 4 verse 6. But he gives more grace. He gives more grace. And therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up. Dad, mom, son, daughter, grandkid, nephew, aunt, uncle, whoever you are, you're going to fail. But when you do everything else to the best of your ability, you live passionately, you love completely, you learn humbly, they're going to be proud of you. They're going to celebrate their mountaintop moment with you. They're going to celebrate your mountaintop moment with you. And when you fail, they're still going to be proud of you and show grace and honor before you. The last one is this. Leave boldly. Leave boldly. What is your foundation set upon? So we had this moment in life that it totally got shook up, shaken to the core, not knowing where to turn or what to do, except we did know where to turn and what to do because of our foundation that was set for us. The best way for you to make it through your trial is to let God use your trial. See, there came this moment in June of 2010 that I woke up to my mom at the foot of my bed telling me that my dad just took his own life. See, we've got too many things going on, too many people right now hurting, not knowing that it's okay to ask for help. Too many pastors quitting, too many pastors taking their own lives, too many pastors having affairs, having issues that they're afraid to talk about because they don't think they can ask for help. And at this moment, I didn't know what to do or where to turn until that night where we worshiped. And we had people at our house, and we had a bonfire, and a friend played worship music for us. We had about 60 people when we had church because of our foundation. It says in 1 Corinthians 3, 10, 11, according to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it, for no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. I firmly believe one of the reasons I was called to ministry and called to preach the gospel, because it wasn't meant for my dad to leave a legacy. He led a legacy, and I'm supposed to pick that up and carry it on so that people know who Jesus is, so that people know that they're valuable, so that the church continues to grow, that broken people can come and they can cry and they can pour their hearts out to God. So people can come in and shout and praise and victory. Not because my dad left a legacy, but because he led one. And I can pick that banister up and I can go with it. And now I get to lead a legacy for two other ones to pick it up and to go with it. Because I learned that you have to show grace when a mistake is made. You may be saying he took his own life. That's not leaving boldly. That's a different conversation. I didn't think that at the moment. The thing is, my dad was sick. He was hurting. He didn't know where to go, where to turn, who to ask. But I know what he stood for. I knew what his foundation was. And that same foundation that his life was built on is the one that mine's built on. And that's the rock, and that's Jesus. The only thing you can ever build your life upon, the only thing you can ever lead from is being a servant of Jesus, the one who came to serve. Because when you leave boldly, you get to have this experience. It says this in Matthew 25 and 23. It said, the master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, so I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. All we can ever ask for is for when we see Jesus face to face, for him to look at us and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's what I want to do. I want to lead a legacy, not just leave a legacy. Because by leading a legacy, someone else is going to take it up and take it even further than I could. Jesus looked at us and he said in his scripture, he said, you will do even greater things than me. How is that possible? Because he's laid the foundation. Now you lead from it. We don't hear much about Noah after that mistake until you get into 2 Peter and they talk about how he was spared from the flood. And then you get into Hebrews 11 and they begin to talk about the Hall of Fame heroes of the Bible, and he's mentioned again. You may never hear your name mentioned as the legacy that you were leading, but there will come a point in time where if you lead your legacy and not leave it, that someone's going to take it up and remember it. All we can ever ask for is to look at the face of Jesus and him to look back and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And we should be bringing people alongside us so they have that same experience as well. God is faithful. And whatever father you've ever had in your life or lack thereof, know that God is the father that you will always need. Whether you had an amazing father that was a replication, a representation of Jesus on earth, that did things the right way, or you didn't have one at all. God is the Father that desires you, that created you, that has called you, that has appointed you. He's adopted you into a family. This family, the local church, saying, hey, I love you. You know, all that other stuff, the stuff that's behind you, it's behind you. It's dead. It's gone. You are a new creation. And I'm here to walk with you. And I will be the father that you never had, or I'll be an even better father than the one that you miss.